For 300,000 years, Europe was a fortress of ice, a frozen wasteland that demanded absolute resilience from anything that dared to breathe its air. In this brutal kingdom, there was only one apex predator, the Neanderthal, built by the cold and forged for the cold. Notice the wide nasal cavity, an evolutionary furnace designed to warm freezing air before it reached the lungs. Their limbs were short, their chests massive and barrel-like, minimizing surface area to lock in vital body heat. Deep inside the limestone caves, life was raw, intimate, and profoundly physical. They did not just survive the Ice Age, they mastered it with heavy stone and sheer muscle. Every tool they crafted, like this Levallois spear point, was designed for brutal, close-quarters impact. They were the undisputed lords of the Pleistocene, hunting the largest beasts to walk the earth. But dominance in the natural world is never permanent. To bring down such prey, a Neanderthal had to rely on sheer brute force and immense pain tolerance. Their bones, thick and dense, show healed fractures matching those of modern rodeo riders. They ruled unchallenged, perfectly adapted to a static, frozen world. But the winds were shifting, and across the vast tundra, a new shadow was beginning to fall. The first sign of change did not come with a roar, but with a whisper in the snow. Footprints, but they were wrong. Too narrow, lacking the wide, heavy-set plant of a Neanderthal heel. The stride was longer, suggesting a creature built not for brute strength, but for sustained, efficient movement. Following the trail, the hunters stumbled upon a remnant of an alien presence. A campsite. The fire pit was different, carefully constructed, utilizing burnt bone marrow to fuel the flames where wood was scarce. Beside the ashes lay a stone tool. Not a heavy, rounded core, but a delicate, razor-thin blade. It was a marvel of precision engineering, struck with an alien logic that prioritized sharpness over impact. A chilling realization settled over the lords of the tundra. They were no longer the only minds in this frozen world. On the horizon, the thin shadows materialized, a band of newcomers crossing into the heart of Europe. Homo Sapiens, anatomically modern humans, a species forged not in the glacial cold, but in the heat of the African savanna. Their limbs were elongated, minimizing energy expenditure over vast distances. A biological mechanism built for the marathon of survival. Unlike the draped furs of the Neanderthals, their garments were tightly stitched, perfectly tailored to trap heat against a slender frame. The skull architecture was radically different. A high, vaulted cranium housing a brain wired for complex social networks. And in their hands, they carried not a heavy thrusting spear, but a seemingly fragile piece of carved wood. Two distinct branches of the human tree were about to converge, and only one would inherit the earth. The inevitable moment finally arrived. Down in the frosty valley, the shadows converged. For the Neanderthal, this creature was an anomaly. Too fragile, too thin to survive the brutal winter. But for the Sapiens, they were looking at a mountain of pure, dense muscle. There were no words exchanged, only the instinctual calculus of apex predators. Look at the cranial contrast. The Sapiens possessed a high, vaulted forehead, lacking the heavy, bony visor. The Neanderthal gripped his weapon, a thick, heavy spear tipped with a massive Levallois point, designed to be thrust with tremendous force. The Sapiens did not raise a spear. Instead, they held a slender, flexible dart, locking it into a strange wooden hook. To a mind forged in close-quarters combat with mammoths, this thin stick looked completely useless. But the Sapiens understood something the Neanderthal did not: the physics of leverage and kinetic energy. The air between them was thick with tension. A single sudden movement could trigger a slaughter. Suddenly, a massive shape breached the tree line. A megalocaris, panicked and fleeing. Instinct overrode curiosity. The Neanderthal immediately lunged into a heavy, aggressive sprint toward the prey. But the Sapiens did not run. They merely adjusted their stance, locking their eyes on the distant, moving target. Two entirely different philosophies of survival were about to be tested on the exact same prey. Brute force and pain tolerance, against the cold, calculated mechanics of distance and velocity. In the chaotic melee, the Neanderthal became a force of pure, untamed violence. Their hunting strategy required them to grapple with a ton of panicked muscle and razor-sharp antlers. It was a strategy of attrition. They absorbed devastating blows, relying on incredibly dense or thick bones to avoid fatal fractures. Every kill was an intimate, agonizing struggle that demanded a massive expenditure of adrenaline and brute strength. Meanwhile, from a safe distance, the Homo sapiens executed a completely different equation of survival. The Atlatl acted as an artificial extension of the arm, adding an extra joint to the biological lever. This primitive ingenuity allowed them to convert latent muscular energy into devastating kinetic velocity. A lightweight projectile, traveling at over 100 miles per hour, slicing through the freezing air. It struck with deadly precision, piercing vital organs without ever placing the hunter in harm's way. The thin flint blade caused massive internal bleeding, effectively doing the work of a heavy spear from 50 paces away. There were no broken bones, no desperate grapples in the snow, only a calculated, low-risk execution. The Neanderthal had secured a mountain of meat, but at a severe physiological cost. Maintaining that immense muscle mass and healing from constant blunt force trauma required a staggering caloric intake. The leaner, more efficient sapiens could survive on significantly less food, stretching their resources further. In a rapidly changing world where large prey was becoming scarce, efficiency was beginning to outpace raw power. To maintain their massive, armored frame, a Neanderthal required a metabolic furnace burning up to 5,000 calories a day. Their powerful jaws and robust teeth were perfectly adapted to process immense quantities of tough, protein-heavy meat. But this biological armor came with a fatal flaw. It was profoundly expensive to operate, making them highly vulnerable to famine. Homo sapiens, by contrast, operated on a radically different, highly efficient energy economy. Their slender frames acted as highly effective thermodynamic engines, shedding heat rapidly through millions of specialized sweat glands. This allowed them to hunt relentlessly, tracking prey to the point of absolute exhaustion without overheating themselves. The contrast between the two species extended deep into the very architecture of the mind. The Neanderthal actually possessed a larger brain, with a pronounced occipital bun at the back of the skull. The sapiens' brain was smaller, but distinctively globular, pushing outward to form a high, vertical forehead. This structural shift heavily favored the frontal and parietal lobes, the regions responsible for complex language and imagination. While Neanderthals lived in small, isolated family units deeply tied to specific, rugged valleys, sapiens were building sprawling, interconnected tribes, exchanging information, tools, and genes across hundreds of miles. For millennia, these distinct biological and social strategies remained locked in a tense stalemate. But then, the Earth itself intervened. The climate began to violently fluctuate, and the deep woods began to die. The frozen fortress was melting into an open, unpredictable world. A world built not for the strong, but for the adaptable. The true conquest of Europe was not written in blood, but in the relentless mathematics of demographics.
Keep close, little one. The cold is sharp today.
I am, Mother. Where are we going?
They exchanged not just genes, but specialized knowledge and exotic materials across vast, invisible trade networks. The Neanderthals, trapped by their massive metabolic demands, remained locked in small but genetically isolated pockets. As the climate violently shifted, the massive herds of megafauna they relied upon began to dwindle and vanish. The highly adaptable sapiens immediately shifted their focus, weaving complex nets to capture smaller, faster game. But the heavy thrusting spear, once the ultimate weapon of the Ice Age, became a useless relic on the open steppe. There was no grand, cinematic war, no final desperate stand of the giant kings. Instead, there was only a slow, agonizing fade, a demographic winter that slowly froze their lineage. For every Neanderthal camp that went dark, 3 new sapiens fires sparked to life on the horizon. They were pushed to the absolute fringes of the continent, clinging to the high cliffs and deep valleys of Gibraltar. The lords of the Pleistocene were watching their world slip away, outcompeted by a ghost they could not fight. Generation after generation, their heavy footsteps grew fewer, eventually buried beneath the shifting sands and snows of time. Homo sapiens became the uncontested masters of the earth, an invasive species with an insatiable hunger for expansion. But the story of the Neanderthal does not end in complete annihilation. They left an invisible, eternal trace behind. For over a century, the scientific consensus was a story of total, brutal replacement. The Neanderthals were considered an evolutionary dead end, a failed experiment of the Ice Age. But the bones held a secret, a microscopic truth that remained hidden until the dawn of advanced genetics. In 2010, the Neanderthal genome was finally mapped, and a shocking revelation emerged from the code. Before the ice claimed them, in the fading twilight of their existence, the 2 lineages met. They didn't just fight for territory. They shared fires, shared cultures, and they interbred. The resulting offspring were hybrids, carrying a blended genetic code that offered immense survival advantages. As Homo sapiens populations exploded and migrated across the globe, they absorbed the scattered remnants of the Neanderthals. Today, if your ancestors trace their lineage to anywhere outside of sub-Saharan Africa, you carry between 1% and 2% Neanderthal DNA within every cell of your body. Their ancient genetic gifts still shape our biology today, boosting our immune systems to fight modern pathogens. They provided the alleles for keratin production, giving modern humans thicker hair and tougher skin to survive the cold. But this legacy is a double-edged sword, heavily influencing modern allergies, autoimmune disorders, and even sleep patterns. The Neanderthals never truly went extinct. They simply became a part of us. The lords of the Ice Age live on, immortalized forever in the blood of the ultimate survivors.